All right, so I'm going to start recording the session now so people who are not here can see it later. Please be sure to don't pick your nose, pay attention, whatever it might be. It'll be saved for posterity. Okay. All right, let's start from here. The goal of today's session is just to kind of go over what we talked about last time. So I'll go into allotment a little bit if we have time, but for the most part, just to make this pretty straightforward and easy, I'm recording this, like I said, so that people who aren't here, or you, if you want to see it later to help study for the exam, it'll be available for you, all right? So we talked about the POLCCA, and really that was the focus of the first chapter. So Jim Collins in Good to Great talks about getting the right people on the bus, which is getting the right employees into your company. So we're going to structure the organization's resources and activities toward its goals to help the firm grow. And what are its goals? Well, that's the vision. So if you know the term vision for a company, we're going to envision what our company will be like a few I don't know, months or years from now. And to get there, we need to align our goals with that vision. And so Dr. Scheer created this term called the POLCCA, which was POLCCA. I added another one, and this should look familiar from class on Wednesday. The P is planning, O is organization, L is leading, the first C is communication, and the second is control. The final A is adjust. And just to kind of go over what those things mean, planning is what do we intend to do and how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? What's our goal? Why do we exist? It includes the vision and the mission. Those are not the same. The vision is where do we want to be? The mission is why did we make this company to begin with? What is our space? What is our industry? Goals and objectives are shorter or easily broken down parts of the vision to know where we need to go. So how do we know we made our goal and how do we know it's there? And then a time frame. And the time frame is strategic, tactical, or operational. Operational is daily. Tactical is kind of a 3 to 18 months time frame. And then strategic is long term. Where do I put my new factory? Do I enter our headquarters in Delaware to get a tax break? Or do I prefer Florida? Or is California better? Or how about Texas? And so that idea of thinking way out is really strategic. You know, who are my shareholders and how am I going to provide value to them 5 years from now? O is organization. O is how we arrange and utilize the resources we have. And we talked about this before. There's land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. How do we structure our activities to meet our objectives? How do we get to where we want to be? So what do we need to do to get there? And so the resources are different categories. Entrepreneurs are the owners that manage the resources and assume risks and failures. So that's you if you were to start your own company. If we were to start our own food truck or whatever service, that's the goal that we're looking for. L is leading, and how do we select, train, and motivate people to meet the goals that we've planned? Our employees pulling on the rope in the same direction, and we'll talk about pulling on the rope later in the semester. So what is the goal here? And who are we leading? Well, we're leading our employees. That makes sense, right? We're paying them. We're leading our customers. What does that mean? Well, we're marketing to our customers. We're convincing them that they need to shop with us. You need to buy our products. You need to use our services. Suppliers, we're leading our suppliers saying, hey, can you tweak whatever product a little bit more to be like what we need? Can you offer this product? I mean, we really would love to have something like that. Technology-wise, the day we go from phones to holograms, can you make holographic images? Is that possible? Can we do that? And then finally, our stakeholders. Our stakeholders are people who are part of the organization. They're not part of the organization, but they're interested in the organization. So it could be stockholders, it could be bondholders, it could be people living in the community. How much pollution do we put out? And or do we use planes or helicopters? Does that affect people? Maybe we're giving money to the local school system in the area. I just read in the Daily Journal yesterday that Whiteland, Indiana is planning on taking 350 acres of green space and turning it into a logistics park. If you work in Whiteland or if you live in Whiteland, how do you feel about that? I mean, do you want to have your fields turned into a logistics park? So you'll have lots of trucks, lots of truck traffic on Whiteland Road, lots of truck traffic on 144. I know I struggle already, not 144, lots of truck traffic on 135. I struggle already with a lot of traffic on 135. So is that something that you want? You're not working for the company, but you're involved, you're concerned. And so you want what's best for the community, what's best for the company, et cetera. Do we want to have that extra truck traffic? That's stakeholder. Okay. I went too far apparently. And then the others, well, I don't know where the rest of the slide deck went. Okay. The others are communication, control, and adjust. We talked about communication. We talked about talking to people, communicating. There's the act. There's 4 parts. There's what I want to say in my head, and then what I actually do say. Those are 2 different things. Sometimes we have things that we want to say when we're driving, and then we don't say them. Sometimes there are things that we want to say in our minds that may not be the best, and we realize there are children around or people who we want to impress or not use vulgarity, so we don't say what's there. Sometimes it takes a lot to control about not saying what you want to say. And so there's the what I want to say, there's the what I say out of my mouth. Then there's also, as the recipient, what do I hear? And then how do I process that in my head? So not only do I hear what the communicator is saying, but then how do I process that? How do I see that? And you've probably had arguments before where you've wanted to say to the other person, you know what, you're just not understanding me. You're just not getting it. You're not listening to me. You don't understand. And it's because it's not that they're not physically listening to you, it's that they're processing it differently than you are. So usually that's the problem with a lot of arguments that you may have with a loved one, with a parent, with a sister, or uncle or aunt or whatever, relative. Usually there's that communication issue. It's because there's an interpretation issue. So communicating clearly and providing expectations is really important. Here are the goals. Here's where we're going to go. Here's how we're going to get there. Here's how you get involved. You're going to do something greater than yourself. You're going to be better or bigger than yourself. That's communication. And then finally, control and adjust. I was thinking about this today, and I think the best way to describe control and adjust is to talk about a specific example. So in Business 371 with the students, we talk about process management, and we talk about how do you make s'mores. So think about for a moment how you would make s'mores. So if you're at a campfire, would you do it over the stove? Would you do it over in the fireplace? Would you use a microwave for s'mores? Some people would say microwaves for s'mores, that is it's heresy. You would never do anything like that because you have to have a campfire. And others would say, no, it doesn't matter. S'mores are s'mores. It doesn't matter how you cook them, right? Some people like to put their marshmallow into the campfire and then make it so it's totally black and gooey on the inside. Other people just want it toasted just a little bit. And some people cook it so slightly that it almost doesn't look cooked at all. But it is. And so there's that. And if we wanted to make it a little bit better, let's have a contest on how to make the most s'mores in an hour. Which person can make the most s'mores in an hour? Well, then we could do a control and adjust. How would we adjust our process so that we can make them quicker? So instead of 1 marshmallow at the end of the stick, now we have 5. So if I have 5 marshmallows, can I cook them all equally? Are they all great? Are they all going to be brown? Are they all going to be black? And are they going to be whatever? So now I'm adjusting my process so that I can meet that new goal. That's the idea behind control and adjust. Control is we're going to maintain control with our product or our service and our process, and adjusting is to make those little tweaks so that we can achieve our goals a little bit better. So that's all I have for this. I'm going to stop here for the POLCCA. Hopefully you guys understand it a little bit more. Okay. Again, planning, organization, leading, communication, control, and adjust. So I'm going to stop share and let go of that. And then I'm going to go into, oh, hold on. So for those that just came in, we just talked about the POLCCA. We talked about the POLCCA last time. So that was pretty straightforward, what we had from last time. But right now we're going to talk about the POLCCA. I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to talk about rich and par. So just bear with me while I pull that slide up. Here we go. So more acronyms for us so that you can understand a little bit more. Let's see here. Okay. So let's now to 3 more we're going to talk about allotment. We talked about resources. I'm going to expand on that a little bit. We're going to talk about being rich and the rich that are there. So there's an acronym for rich, and then keeping things on par. We'll talk about that too. So, okay, can you guys see the slides? Okay. So allotment, rich, and par. We're going to go a little bit further than the POLCCA. We're going to talk about scarcity. Now, scarcity is a term that we use in economics quite often. Scarcity is one of those things. It's not that something is scarce and that it's hard to find. Like, for example, Lysol wipes or diaper wipes, right? Hard to find. I mean, for a while, toilet paper at the beginning of the pandemic was hard to find. That's not scarcity, right? A product can be scarce. You can't find it. It's hard to find. Go around different stores. I'm going to try online sources. Can't find it. Scarcity means that we have a limited amount of money and we have all these things that we want to do with it. And I have to pick and choose what things I want to do with my money. So let's say you won the lottery, you have $1 million. It sounds like a lot of money. What can you do with it? What would you want to do with $1 million? Now, I can't buy a $5 million mansion, although as nice as that would be, right? I can't buy a baseball team. That would be great too, but I can't do it because $1 million doesn't meet all of those needs. Or maybe I can buy 3 cars and I can pay for a great education and I can have a decent sized home, etc. And the total amount comes out to be 1.5 million. Well, I don't have 1.5 million. I only have 1 million. So because of that, there's scarcity. There's a lot of things that I want to do with my money, but I only have so much money. You probably deal with that as a college student all the time. I only have so much of a budget that I can handle. So we have to budget our resources to meet our important goals. And that term that's used is allot. We're going to allot our resources to meet our goals, right? So the term allotment will pop up occasionally in our class. So we're going to allot everything that we can or do the best we can for allotment. Allot our resources toward those goals. And remember, those resources are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. So, oh, there they are. 4 different groups. Allotment means budgeting. We have to weigh our costs and benefits. Now, here is the first time, if maybe, I assume, is the first time you're going to learn about value. And I mentioned this, I think I mentioned this in class, that my wedding band costs a certain amount of money, but how much value does it offer me? Well, it's priceless because it means a lot to me. So there's a lot of importance behind my wedding band. But for you, you have things that are valuable for you that are priceless, things that you value. Could be relationships, could be items, could be a sporting activity. And that time I spend when I work out or I play a game or something to that effect, that's valuable. Now, valuable put shortly, and this may be later in the slides, is really cost, benefit minus cost, or benefit over cost. It doesn't matter. It weighs the benefits of something versus the cost of something. So for example, if you value your car, the benefits of having your car is much higher than the cost of maintaining it and paying for insurance and driving it, fuel and what have you. If you're not a car person, the cost actually may be higher than the benefits. And you may think, you know what, it's a nice vehicle to get me from point A to point B, but that's it. It doesn't matter if I have a nice custom car or I have a minivan. So just as long as it gets me from place to place, that's value. Value is cost divided by benefit, or cost minus benefit. It just weighs the two. And whichever one is higher depends on whether you value something. So if you value a relationship with your parents, if you value a relationship with your brother or sister, if you value a relationship with your significant other, if you value dinner time on Sunday nights, whatever it might be, if you value your education, if you value your vehicle, all those things are value. And so we're going to budget our resources and we have to weigh our costs with our resources. Or in other words, we need to do things that will add value to the organization. We need to do things that add value to the customer. Because if the customer doesn't see or perceive value, they won't buy it. They're not interested. It's like saying, hey, I have a service that can clean up your room or your apartment really fast. Wouldn't you want to buy that? Well, sure. It'll cost you about $1,000 a month. Well, now the cost is probably outweighing the benefit. So the value is not there. We can fulfill objectives by budgeting resources, but not others. So there's that scarcity. There's lots of things we want to do with our money, but we can only do a few of them. And then finally, we have to determine our priorities. We have to determine which ones are important. What are we going to do? What is the most important for my company? How are we going to make that happen? Okay. So, sorry, I'm periodically letting more people into the room. Okay. So with value is something called opportunity cost. So opportunity cost, back to econ, is a real cost when we budget a resource. Opportunity cost is the cost of something that I could also do with my money. So there's that scarcity and allotment that's there, but then I could also say, you know what, my opportunity cost, forgive me, my daughter's playing next to me. The opportunity cost is, here is the opportunity. I could have spent this money and invested it on resources for my company to thrive. I could have also spent the money on the stock market and invested in other companies too, which has a higher return on investment, but is also volatile, which means it might not give me the money that I expect. So if I invest my money and my resources and my people in the company, I could have invested it in the stock market instead. The stock market is an opportunity cost. Since I have invested into the company, therefore I cannot invest into the stock market. That stock market is an opportunity cost. I could have done it, but I chose not to. So once I spend my money, I can't do the second backup thing or the secondary priority. So that's our opportunity cost. That's kind of, like I said, goes with scarcity. If we choose to close our business to pursue another more profitable business, we have to be mindful of our resources allotted to the business. So in other words, we have to know that our resources are tied to our business, that they are tied there. If we decide to get out of the sandwich making company and we decide to go into the person transporting company, so like Uber or Lyft, and we start driving people around the neighborhood, that's a whole different set of resources we need to buy. Different cars, hiring good drivers, hiring people who are willing to, that know the area pretty well, selling all of our meats, selling all of our equipment, selling our storefront. So all of those things we have to change. And again, there's that opportunity cost. You know, what else would we have done? Instead of opening a sandwich shop, we could have had a tire and oil change center. Or we could have had a student group mentioned once. We could have had a garage that has lifts in it. And so people could change their own oil. They could look under their own cars. And all we have to do is just rent them the space, almost like one of those self car wash services. So you can just kind of pull your car in, but instead it would be a lift. So there's an opportunity for something that we could have done else instead of going into our personal business. The outside goals are important to consider when you're looking at a business. So again, there's that opportunity cost you got to keep in mind. It's not a physical cost. It's not money, but it's, if I invest my money in one thing, then I can't invest it in another. And that's important. So now I'm going to go into something called rich and par. Okay. First off, in a company, when we create our planning, so part of the P of the POLCCA, one of the things we have to plan is not just the mission and the vision and the strategy. We also have to plan our core values. Our core values are the core values. They are the values that are central to us, that we portray to our stakeholders, no matter who it is. It is the values that are important to us. It's what makes us stand out. They demonstrate why we exist and how we appeal to customers. Core values explain what our organization believes in and how we behave. So a core value could be integrity. A core value could be honesty. A core value could be, oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, getting letting more people in. A core value could be integrity. A core value could be honesty. A core value could be respect. Core value is competence. Fairness is a core value. Could be a faith-based organization. So my religion, my faith is a core value. Could be the way we look, the way we're dressed, the way we behave, the way we, those things are core values. Maybe that we have a humility as a core value. Maybe relationships are a core value. What are these different things that are important to us? And we portray them. So as we start portraying these core values to other people, we start looking at this, and customers look at us and say, oh, that's a company I want to work with. So for example, Chick-fil-A, their core value is that honesty and that kindness, that you say thank you, they say my pleasure. It's not simply just a thank you or you're welcome. It's a my pleasure. That means more, right? There's that core value. However, another core value that we know but we don't often comment about is their efficiency. How long does it take to wait into a car line at Chick-fil-A? Amazingly, there could be 4 cars at McDonald's and it takes me 20 minutes, but there could be 25 cars at Chick-fil-A and it takes me 5 minutes. How is that possible? Because they're always thinking, as a supply chain person, they're always thinking of a way to improve the process. How do I make it better? How do I make it faster? How is it easier? What makes it so that people still receive kindness? Right. So that idea that's there. Now Chick-fil-A during the pandemic has the 3 lanes. And so you can go into the 3rd lane and do a mobile order and make it easier that way. So anyway, these these different core values I'm going to call rich: respect, integrity, competence, and honesty. Why these four? Because often they're found in a lot of different companies' core values. There are others. I'm not saying these are the only four, but these are four that you often will find. We're going to respect other people. We're going to have integrity, which again is showing up and following through. We're going to have competence. We're going to be good at what we do, and we're going to be honest. We're going to have ethics. We're going to tell you when things are good and when things are bad. And then again, fairness, that equality, regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation, is usually another one. That people are treated fairly regardless of who you are as a customer. People are treated fairly regardless of who you are as a person in the company. So that's rich. Now, PAR is a little bit different. Core values also create a culture. And I could go into culture for an entire day, but I won't because I don't want to put you to sleep. But culture also tells you what's called PAR, which is what is prohibited, what is acceptable, and what is required. So if you go into the Franklin College website, you will see that there are core values. There's diversity and inclusion. There is academic integrity. There is pursuit of knowledge. There is community, having a sense of community. Those are core values, and they dictate what is acceptable at the college. So what is required? Mask wearing is required. You have to wear masks, right? Showing up to class, you have to show up to class. As a matter of fact, you may not know this, but if you don't show up for class, I think 2 weeks in a row, they start contacting you and asking if you're still enrolled, right? So what is required? What do we have to do? You have to pass your classes. How do you pass your classes? Do your assignments, pass your exams, right? Do the projects that are asked of you. So what is required? What is acceptable? What can you do that's not required? Acceptable is being able to go to the cafeteria. Acceptable is being able to hang out with friends and their roommates in the dorms. Acceptable is being able to go to functions on campus. If you are over the age of 21, before COVID, we had wine tasting days on campus where Mallow Run Winery or Oliver Winery, or they would come to campus and they would have wine tasting events. That was acceptable. You can go in and go try out some wine, or you can go in to try out some other festivals that we would have on campus. Those things are acceptable. That's completely fine. If you have a problem with other students and you need to file a complaint, you can file a complaint against another student on campus. You may not want to do that, but you can if you want. If it ends up being some sort of personal problems, personal challenge, that's acceptable. The values determine that's acceptability because we want you to feel at home. We want you to feel safe and secure because we are about diversity, inclusion, and community, our core values, right? Finally, what's prohibited? What can you not do? You cannot walk on Day Mall and hit somebody, punch somebody. Okay, that's illegal. You just can't do it. It's against the community. It's against the feel and the what makes Franklin College thrive. It's part of our culture. You can't hurt someone. Although I'm sure there are days where you probably want to do that, right? But you shouldn't do that. That is prohibited. Or here's another one. You cannot cheat on your exams. You can actually be suspended and expelled from the school for cheating on your exams, right? That's prohibited. Why? Because we want you to think individually. We want you to think like yourself. We want you to personally excel. And so if you're caught cheating, that's prohibited. You can't steal silverware from the cafeteria. Although we could talk later about culture and what is not seen. So underlying culture, underlying values, which is you shouldn't steal silverware, but people do, and don't get caught, right? Or if they get caught, it's usually not a fine. So what is an underlying assumption? But PAR is what is prohibited, what is acceptable, and what is required. Okay, so what are things? These are all determined by our core values. Leaders must support core values with intentional actions as role models. So your leaders, your president, your vice presidents, your professors, etc., should exhibit the core, as role models, exhibit the core values. And they may or may not. Depends on your perspective. But that's what PAR is. So our corporate culture is 3 levels. The first is artifacts, which is stuff that you see. So what are stuff that you see? Well, you see blue and gold, gold and blue, bold and true, right? That's part of our tagline. So we see Grizz. We see the idea of SCO-Grizz. And you start going to different events and the term SCO-Grizz and what that means. That means more than just Go Grizzlies, right? So here's the artifacts. Here's what Old Main looks like. The first time you walked into Old Main, what did you think? Did you think, man, what is that smell? Right? Did you think this is like an old library? Like, did you think first time you walked into the science center, what did you think? This isn't so bad. First time you walked in the Hamilton Library, what did you think? Right? So these are the artifacts. The first time you walked into the student center, what did you think? When you went to the cafeteria, you thought, wow, this is small. Or they actually have plexiglass partitions, or whatever it might be. Like, what were your first thoughts? Those are the artifacts, right? People walking around with Franklin College face masks this semester, that's an artifact. Not only did you have to wear face masks, we're going to provide them for you. So you can have one and use it, wear it, etc. Core values, we just talked about. What are the core values? What's important to us? Diversity, inclusion, community, academic learning, insights, achieving your best, etc. That's important to Franklin College, and important to me, and important to a lot of faculty, a lot of people who are in administration, important to the president, right? I remember last year when we first did Launch, which is the program for first year students coming in. And I remember asking, I don't know if they did it this year, they had the candlelight vigil where people came in and they kind of stood around Day Mall holding candles at night. And people came in wearing robes and being very serious and talk about it. Really it's kind of like a prayer session, but not really. It was kind of like hoping that the semester would start off right and care for our students and care that people are okay and that they don't get homesick, etc. And I remember coming in and asking my students, what did you think of the prayer vigil? What did you think of that vigil that we had? And somebody said, it's like a cult. People are wearing these long dark robes and they have candles and they're standing talking about things that are important to the college. And I thought, well, that's a misfire, right? The core values don't really talk about people being in cults. And even though it wasn't one, or it wasn't a cultic activity, I don't think, it was more a matter of, what am I in? Oh my goodness, what is this? And then finally, there's those underlying assumptions. So artifacts are on top, the top of the iceberg, what you can see. Core values and beliefs are what you feel, whether you feel included or not. Underlying assumptions are those things that we don't look at. So for example, we talk about it, but we don't really focus very much on parking on the campus. What is parking like for you? Was it enough? Is it close enough to where you want to be? We don't really talk about Hoover Klein or Epley or wherever we may go to the dorm rooms and what quality they are. How good are the dorm rooms really, right? What's that like? Or security. We don't really talk about security. You can walk around on campus and probably not get attacked by an outsider. But really, do we have that fear? Is there a problem? Is there a chance that if you really need help, you can get help when you need it? Even if you lock yourself out of the room, your dorm room. So underlying assumptions are hidden aspects of the company that we don't talk about. We don't often think about. Usually we don't do so because people just assume, right? So we look at things like, we are a campus that's about honesty and integrity. You can't hurt somebody else, but you might. What happens if you're in a group project with somebody and there's that one person that doesn't want to do anything and they're willing to sacrifice your grade because they don't want to do anything, right? That's bad. That's kind of an underlying assumption we don't really talk about. What do we do in those events? What happens with sexual assault and things like that? What happens with academic integrity or dishonesty? How do we handle that? We have processes for these things, but may not really understand the underlying assumptions as to why people do it. A great example of this underlying assumption in American culture is you're required to wear a mask. It's a mandate, right? You have to wear one. So why are so many people not wearing them? They choose not to. I went into a Casey's gas station yesterday, and I don't know, probably about 11 people in the building, including the employees, and I was the only one wearing a mask. What happened? Did it get lifted? I wasn't aware of this. I mean, I thought a mandate means you have to do it, but there's no enforcement. Now, that's another question. Do you enforce policies by a local community if it's considered a law or it's considered a mandate, which is you must do it, but it's not a law. So if it's not approved or validated, then should you have police intervention? Should people get fined for not wearing masks? Should people get arrested for not wearing masks? And so all these are part of this underlying assumptions. We think about it, we talk about it a little bit, but we don't really think about the why. Why do we do this? So know that that's there. Artifacts, core values and beliefs, and underlying assumptions. And that's the end of this slide deck, and I'm going to stop here, okay, for the day. So I'll let you guys go. Remember, you still have 2 response posts on your discussion forum to do. You also have You have until Sunday night to do those. Your initial post should have been done on Wednesday. If you didn't, don't worry about it. That's only just a few points for the whole grade. I mean, it's not going to hurt you. Just do your best next week. Next week, we do not have class on Monday. We do not have class on Friday. So we only have class in person on Wednesday. Okay. So that is the risk and the par. The rich and the par. Prohibited, allowed, and required, and then the rich are the integrity, are the values. So looking at what's important, what's core for the company, and what are these values that we should espouse, that we should say that are important to us: respect, and integrity, and competence, and honesty. Now, next time we get together next week, we're going to start talking about not only POLCCA a little bit more, but we're going to talk about, I don't know if it's next week or soon, talk about customers. What are the values of the customers? And how do you take the values of the customers and the value of our company and interlock them? Because let's be honest, aren't you going to shop at a place that's more about you than about profit? I mean, you're going to be more interested in a company that sounds like they hear you or has similar values as you, similar goals as you. And that's the appeal. That's part of what will draw you into the company and use their products and services. So for example, if you believe that there are a lot of people that in other countries that need shoes, then you should buy products from Tom Shoes. Because every time you buy a pair of Toms, then not only do you buy a pair, but they give a pair to another person in need of shoes in another country. There's value in that, right? Similarly, are Tom shoes comfortable? So if you buy a pair of Toms, yeah, that's nice to buy it and have it donated. But if you buy a pair of Toms, would you even wear them? Because some people find they're not comfortable. Uggs is the same way, right? I don't think Uggs donates anything, but still, some people love them, some people hate them, and there are different opinions and different values that are there. Would you buy an Apple product based on the core culture of Apple? Do you use Google because of the core of Google, or more importantly, Facebook and Twitter? Do you use social media, assuming that they capture your information and hold on to it? Do you use TikTok if TikTok really does hold on to a lot of your personal information, your search history, to use for you again, to use with you again later as marketing? And that's up to you. So if they've espoused your values or they match your values, there's a good chance you'll use them. Otherwise, you probably won't. So that's all I've got for today.